Now let's get on to net zero by 2050, a huge focus with the Glasgow conference happening next week, effectively. I just want to show you a little bit of what Boris Johnson has had to say on this issue this week.
So we're making big bets on hydrogen, we're making bets on solar and hydro, and yes, of course, on nuclear as well, nuclear for our baseload. And we're making such massive progress that we've now pledged to switch entirely to green power generation by 2035.
Alexander, I think it's telling that he talks about bets on hydrogen and bets on solar, but he knows that nuclear is an investment. There's already 20% of UK power coming from nuclear, and they know if they can expand that, the critical point is, whatever the costs, it is reliable.
Yes, so there is increasingly a view that wind power and solar power is going to be too slow to be implemented and is too unreliable to be baseload power, as you quite rightly say. And bearing in mind around 80% of all of the world's energy is generated from fossil fuels, that we can already see the effect of cutting back on fossil fuel production, and that is very steep increases in gas prices, oil prices, petrol prices, and so on. So how do you deal with this? And probably the only medium-term effective way of dealing with baseload power, if you're not going to use fossil fuels, is nuclear. So you can see, by the way, big increases in uranium prices at the moment, as more and more leaders are starting to come to terms with that being a very real prospect. But in a way, that is the world's, if I could put it this way, easiest solution to continuing to generate baseload power, but at the same time reducing CO2 emissions.
Well, you only have to look at France to see that. They get 70% of their electricity from nuclear sources, so virtually emissions-free, and they've been exporting so much of that energy to other countries who have been in strife, like Germany and back into the UK even.
Well, the German government, you know, everyone says what a wonderful Chancellor Angela Merkel was. One of the ridiculous things she did when Fukushima melted down, or it's not quite the right term, but closed down. There was the Fukushima accident, was to close Germany's nuclear power plants, although Germany continued to import nuclear power from France. As a result, of course, Germany has become increasingly dependent on importing gas, which is a fossil fuel, importing gas from Russia. I mean, they have to have energy from somewhere or close the country. So that's what they've done. So it's been a huge mistake in Germany, and it was done entirely for political reasons. But, you know, in this space, so much is being done for political reasons, but ultimately the price of energy is going to catch up with politicians. And as the price, particularly of fossil fuels, continues to soar, that is going to become a very major political headache.
So Australia is the only G20 country where nuclear energy is actually illegal. It's been legislated out of the options. That happened while you were in Parliament, actually. Do you think it's time to get rid of that federal legislative ban?
Obviously, and it's completely absurd. Really, it's sort of mindless policy making. And of course, that's right. You can just repeal the legislation. It's not built into the Constitution or anything. Yeah, what is changing is nuclear power technology. These new small-sized nuclear reactors are now being developed both in the United States, I think in Japan by Mitsubishi, and in the UK by Rolls-Royce. And these small reactors are likely to transform the capacity of countries to use small-scale nuclear power stations. So it will make it politically easier for governments to do it. And of course, it will provide that baseload but clean source of energy.
Indeed, the small modular reactors, we'll be looking at those in my special Monday night. Thanks so much for joining us, Alexander.
It's a pleasure.
Alexander Downer there, the former foreign minister of this country, the longest serving foreign minister of this country. He mentions there those smaller modular nuclear reactors as being the future of the nuclear industry in energy. I'm having a look at those in the documentary, 8 o'clock Monday night on this station. Now, I've got there it is, Going Nuclear, the clean energy debate.